So my name is Daniel Student. I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland, and I was in school one day, and I got pulled out of class, and they didn't tell me why, and I went down to the area where the cars pick us up, and it wasn't actually my mother or my father waiting for me, but this woman, Sharon, who was actually my mother's boss. Sharon was a close family friend, and we drove to an apartment complex where my father lived. Unfortunately, my parents had separated 6 months previously, and I just remember my mom walking up the steps and just with huge tears in her eyes. And when we saw my mother, we knew that my father had died. The reason I bring up that memory is that about 6 months after that, Sharon moved into our house, my mom and her basically broke that they had had a relationship, and they sat down, my brother and I, and for the first time ever, I got introduced to the word lesbian, which is a word I didn't know before. And so it was a gradual process. My parents really wanted my brother and I to understand what was going on. Obviously, having a step-parent at all move into your house is always scary. Little by little, Sharon, as this person who was already in our life, grew to be my parent. I got to watch her become a parent in front of my eyes. I went across my adolescence and teenage years in a very distinct situation. I did dealing with a lot of issues on the playground. I had a couple friends that I definitely feel like I lost in the meantime. I had a situation with a friend across the street. We would play together a lot, and I lived in a sort of safe suburban neighborhood. Everyone's out on their bicycles. And so we were playing one day in his yard, and I just remember his father called us in. And when he went into their house, this I definitely won't ever forget. There was just sort of like, you walked in and the kitchen was right in front of you, and you had to take a right and you go down a step, and it just stays in my mind because his father was sitting right at the end of the table, sort of like, if you can imagine like film noir light on him. That was what was happening. We had to like walk down the step to sort of come into his world. And he sort of sat us down, both me and my friend. And I don't remember much about what was said, but I remember that the main crux of what he wanted to talk about was my parents. And he asked me if my parents were dykes. I just remember not understanding what that meant, but just getting a tone that was not friendly. And so I remember running across the street crying. I'm not sure if I ran across the street like right after that got said or if there was more conversation. But I remember coming into the house and telling my mom what he had said. And my mom basically sitting me down right at that moment to say, okay, this is what that word means, and this is why I said that. And I remember just her being so, having that look of like fire, like that look of a protective mother who's just can't believe what just happened. And we stopped playing a lot after that, and it wasn't really this sort of dramatic thing, but I certainly remember that I lost the desire to hang out with this young man, and he seemed to have lost the desire to hang out with me. And I remember all these, things of like being picked on in the neighborhood, and yet I don't remember them outside of the one incident I mentioned earlier, ever really being that big of a deal. I remember my parents just making it feel like, so what to me? Just coming home and talking about our days over the dining room table, and listening to me, and believing in me and the person I was becoming, and somehow managed to minimize the impact of could be very major scars. I had a family that gave me experience that made it a better family, made it a better experience for me as a child, that gave me a chance to really sort out some stuff about myself that I don't think a lot of people would. I got to really look at myself and say, what kind of human am I? How am I going to relate to other people who might not fit into the boxes that we don't fit into? One thing I really want to say on camera, and I'm very excited to say, is that my parents got married last year, and my brother and I, of course, were the witnesses, and we made it a little family event. And again, very much in the theme of our family, we went to the courthouse and we went and got brunch afterwards, and it was about the four of us celebrating that moment. My parents said they have very close friends, but they didn't need it to be. It was about our family unit and what we had gone through, not just about what they had gone through. And that's really what makes them special. They made it about us and us working together as a group. We have systematically become a family that people don't see as the guys with two moms. I've been asked, how do I introduce my parents, or what do I say? And I honestly just say my two moms, and give the details of who they are beyond that. And people, I think, not only see us as just another family, but see us as a family that has really learned how to share love with each other.